Good evening. As I speak, President-elect Noynoy Aquino has yet to choose where he will make his official residence. He's decided against this place, Malacañang Palace, because of, among others, its karmic implications. Among the alternatives considered, the Laperal Mansion, known as Arlegui for the street it's situated on, the premier guest house across the front lawn where Aquino lived with his mother during President Cory's term. There's also the Goldenberg Mansion down the road, but that and Arlegui are reportedly deemed too large for the country's first bachelor president and his lonesome. Looming as a more likely choice, the cozier Pangarap guest house across the river from the palace. That is, unless Pinoy decides to stay in his current residence on Times Street with all the security and logistical nightmares that will involve. But his dilemma is hardly new. In fact, it's one that leaders of the Philippines have been grappling with since the early 1900s. Let's walk through the serious options for where the country's top executive is supposed to live, totaling, would you believe, over 17 in the last 100 years. Join me and gain a new understanding of our complex history as a nation. I'm Twink Macaraig, standing in for Manolo Quezon, the explainer. The traditional official residence has been Malacañang Palace, home to 18 Spanish governors general and 13 American civil governors before the Filipinos took over with President Manuel L. Quezon in 1935. The palace started its official life as a temporary residence of Spanish governors general after a trembler in 1869 reduced the original stone edifice at the Plaza Mayor in Intramuros to ruins. The tumultuous state of the islands in the last quarter of the 19th century prevented Spanish authorities from rebuilding the palace in the walled city. With the American takeover, the capital and its civic buildings had to be rebuilt or improved, and that included the governor's residence. The renowned architect Daniel Burnham planned for the governor's residence right beside what was to be the civic center of American Manila. The Luneta was to be extended and made into a miniature version of the National Mall in Washington, D.C. Burnham laid out a large mansion with a number of smaller bungalows beside it at the water's edge. The complex was never built, though, and the Civic Center was only partially completed as American policy changed to a gradual but inevitable letting go of far-flung territories like the Philippines. Meanwhile, the insular officials, including the governor, needed ways to mitigate the discomfort of Manila and the residents needing constant repair from flooding and lack of amenities. The solution was to seasonally move to cooler climes. The mansion house in Baguio was the alternative summer residence of the governors general. Built in 1908 from plans prepared by American insular architect William E. Parsons, it served faithfully until it was destroyed in the war. Rebuilt in 1947, the structure has been a summer getaway to Philippine presidents since then. At the beginning of the Commonwealth period, the mansion house was a temporary residence of the last American governor, Frank Murphy, while he waited for the completion of the new American Chancery. This was rising near the site originally chosen by Daniel Burnham for the governor's residence on reclaimed land donated by the city of Manila. That complex survives to this day as the American Embassy. Commonwealth President Quezon embarked on grand improvements for the palace, but not all the presidential family wanted to live there. The flamboyant politico built his wife, Doña Aurora, a separate mansion on a cliffside property overlooking Marikina town, well away from Malacañang and the bustle of Manila. But Quezon had even bigger plans for a new capital for a soon-to-be independent Philippines. In the manner of Washington, D.C., Quezon City was born from the vast fields of the Tuasan Estate. Manolo's lolo brought in American planners to collaborate with senior government architect Juan Arellano on the project. The 1941 Frost-Arellano master plan for the new capital, Quezon City, provided a new site for the presidential palace. In fact, the plan built the new city around a central area that would have housed the three branches of government. The legislative complex was to be built on a 25-hectare elliptical site. On one side, along a road that eventually became East Avenue, was to rise the Supreme Court complex. Opposite on the North Avenue was the site of the new presidential palace complex with the residence and executive offices. Today, it's the Veterans Memorial Hospital where, coincidentally, a president did live for a time, President Erap, before he was banished to Tanay. Quezon also considered establishing a summer capital in Tagaytay, which he had master planned as such in 1941 by Harry Frost, Arellano's collaborator on the Quezon City master plan. A summer residence for the president would have been a key element of the plan, as it had been for Baguio. He did have a rest house built along the ridge, as well as a lodge, now the Taal Vista Lodge, and even a golf course where the DAP now sprawls. The two cities' plans were put on hold because of the advent of World War II. President Quezon moved Malacañang to Corregidor in December of 1941. The government in exile had its president live in a suite at the the Shoreham Hotel in Washington, D.C. until 1944, the year he died from tuberculosis. After the war's end in 1947, the Quezon City plan was revived, but the site of the three branches were moved to Novaliches. These plans were revised twice more, in 1949 and 1956. But the location for the new residence and executive complex remained essentially the same, at the northern end of a triangular pad overlooking the Marikina Valley. The Patasang Pambasa now sits at the center of this plot. What most people don't know was that the Malacañang Palace was being planned may have moved even farther than Quezon City. In 1949, the government actually looked at locating the capital elsewhere. A committee was formed to look at 16 other options to Novaliches. These included, among others, Tagaytay, Cebu, Davao, San Pablo, Baguio, Los Baños, Montalban, Antipolo, and Fort McKinley, now called Fort Bonifacio. The committee even considered moving the capital to the geographical center of the country, very close to a small island in the Visayas, now known worldwide as Boracay. Picture it, our president could have welcomed foreign dignitaries on Long Beach. People power would have been one hell of a party! But the palace stayed by the Pasig from Roxas' term to the Marcos regime. Early into the martial law years, before the parliamentary move to Novaliches, the strongmen of Asia decided to bring back the capital from Quezon City to Manila, or more properly, the Greater Manila area, a structure designed by William E. Parsons in 1910. The official name given was Malacañans sa Sugbo. Renovated at the reported amount of only 700,000 pesos, it's seen little use and its fate is unknown. This brings us to 2010 and President Noynoy Aquino. It's no wonder he's cool to the idea of living in Malacañang Palace, and he may want to consider relocating